And the other thing I wanted to talk about, this is what kind of shocked me. When you see these trusses, you think, well, the main ones are running out to the wall. So the corrugation in a steel, you always want to put it perpendicular to your main trusses. So it should be running this way. But they turned it. So the main weight-bearing trusses are actually running parallel to the outer wall. And they did that so they would make this diaphragm more powerful heading towards the exterior wall. So this doesn't buckle up. This isn't going to roll up when you hit it. It's going to act like a knife blade. It just won't buckle. It's going to be very difficult to buckle because all the corrugations are going.
You got a bunch of plastic and aluminum slamming into it. It's going to go like a cheese grater.
It is. And it's running in both ways. As you can see, this heavy here and little slots. So it's going to shred it. And so that once it goes past this wall, there's very little that's in a very large piece to do much damage at all. And when you study some of the photographs, one of the best ones I've seen, which has this woman standing in it, I think we've all seen that woman standing in that slot on the north building where where it went in.
Waving a shirt.
Yeah. These columns that you see here, they weren't totally unintact and blown back into the building. They were still hanging there like a loose tooth, meaning they didn't really get rid of them. It wasn't like totally blown off.
On the initial impact point, when it had its most force and the entire plane went through that space, it couldn't even knock those out entirely.
Correct. They could.
And as it goes in, it dissipates and loses force. That's like General Benton K. Parton, who immediately went to Oklahoma City because he was watching the news, and they said the Ryder truck was here, and it was a little bitty crater, and he saw columns right by it, not even damaged, but way back in the back, blasted off with blast points at an angle where controlled demolitions have been put in because you don't want to blow a column straight across. It a lot of times will stay, with its own weight on top of the other. You got to blast at an edge. And he said, blast points. Only Imperial stormtroopers are so precise.
Correct. And he also said that the exponential loss of power from that is tremendous. And he said it wouldn't even take a ceiling tiles out, just the lay-in ceiling tiles at like 30 feet or so. So that was an amazing, General Parton did a great job on that. Again, this is probably this is showing how all the damage that were done by these jets on the World Trade Center was very compartmentalized by the nature of how it is built. Since there are trusses running in both directions for these floors, it is called a space frame. And I thought maybe I was taking a little liberty in calling it a space frame, but even the authors back in the 70s, when they were writing about this building, they too used the term space frame floors. So I'm going to do it too. And they are acting like a space frame floor. So the reason why...
And all of this interlocks to support everything else.
Right. So the reason why this now, if there were only trusses running in one direction and you crashed into it here, all these floors would completely collapse all the way down here because they were running the full length. Well, that's not what was happening. Since there were trusses running in both directions, these are still held by the outer columns that were still in place. So these are acting like huge columns here now. And now all these spandrels up here that are on the outer face connecting all the steel columns, these are all heavy beams going back to these heavy columns.
And you got the giant trestle tying it all together.
And that's right. Even if you did have a loss of all this train trestle type thing, 5 stories tall.
I've never heard of Jawas hitting something this big. But that's because they didn't. Again, look at these blast points. I'm using a Star Wars analogy.
Oh, okay. Well, here's another fun way to think about this because of the relativity of things. You can also think of this as a 1 billion-pound fly swatter hitting a 300-ton airplane. So it's just another way of looking.
It'd be like a fly hitting a fly swatter and the whole fly swatter collapses.
Correct.
In a little
Next time you hit a fly, be very careful if this would be true.
I'm sorry for the cheesy Star Wars analogy. It's actually, I've never heard of sand people hitting something this big.
We're having a little, we're having a good time.
No, that's a false flag in Star Wars Episode 4 when they blow up the sand crawler and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker are there, and there's going, I've never heard of sand people, hitting something this big, some nomads with little bitty pop guns. And Obi-Wan Kenobi says, that's because they didn't. We're made to believe they did. And he goes, look at these blast points. This was done professionally. The point is to say that guys in a cave did this and that all the laws of science were suspended and that NORAD was running drills of the exact same targets being attacked. And you've got, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And then Building 7's hit by nothing and just implodes in on itself. It's just insane.
Well, not only that, we have on Building 7, we have the man that bought the lease on the World Trade Center 6 weeks before it occurred, Larry Silverstein, has this conversation on PBS where he admits that he got a call from the fire department and said they weren't sure they could control the fire in the Building 7. And he said, well, since we had such tremendous loss of life, maybe the smartest thing to do is just pull it. And then they made the decision to pull, and we watched it fall down.
And then they lie and say, well, that doesn't mean controlled demolition. But 5 minutes later on the same show, they show them destroying the wreckage of 6 and 5, and they say, getting ready to pull Building 6. It's a guy with a southern accent, and then they blow it up.
Well, I've actually heard, this kills me, Alex. They tried to repair that later by saying, well, what we meant by pull was pull the firemen out. Well, why would they be waiting for the building to fall down after they pulled the fire? But were the firemen holding it up? I mean, that has nothing to
Yeah, we pulled the firemen out and watched the building come down.
Yeah,
no, they didn't say. They said we gave the order to pull it.
That is correct. And
you got BBC 25 minutes before on 2 channels, the exact same words. I predicted it was Reuters that fed them because I know they feed BBC News a lot. 24 and World, BBC 24 and World, announced Solomon Brothers fell in its own footprint from the fires. She's broadcasting. It's right behind her.
Yes, yeah.
I mean,
Well, another thing architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth are now talking about is bringing a grand jury investigation of Isham, what's his name, Sunder? I can't. Siam, I think it's Siam Sunder, who is head of, I believe that was NIST, and he's head of it and head of the review of the collapse of Building 7. And so let me tell you something. When he first said that he had come up, that the NIST had come up with a new way to review the collapse of this building, and that architects and engineers should now consider thermal expansion, I almost fell out of my chair. I thought that was the funniest thing I'd ever heard. This guy's a stand-up comic. He ought to be hired by the AIA to do banquets for him, because thermal expansion is everyday business of architects. I mean, this is no new thing. And to say that they've come up with a new way to analyze a building and it's called thermal expansion is a riot. And then he said, on top of that, that only one column failed and caused ultimately global collapse. Well, that's insane, because if any building is ever built where one column can collapse and cause global collapse, then you should never enter a building over 2 or 3 stories tall ever again, because this is insane.
Well, by the way, they're now changing the insurance rules, saying we believe a Bic lighter can burn a building down. None never collapsed until 9/11. 3 did. Now we've had all these other big skyscrapers burn for days sometimes, towering infernos. Nothing collapses but a few sheetrock and tiny, metal supports just in roofs for like air conditioning. The whole building's still there. It never happens. They were talking about the Echelon building. We're getting ready for it to collapse when Stack flew his airplane in. Look, there's all these big fires. It's going to collapse.
Yeah.
It's going to collapse because they say so.
Right.
I mean, that's like saying you shoot Mount Rushmore with a BB gun and the whole mountain collapses. I mean, it's just...
Right. It's they've just carried this way too far, and we need to stop this. We need to actually...
look at that Chinese skyscraper.
I remember that one, the hotel. Then there's the Madrid Tower in Spain.
Now look at 7, a few fires in 3 or 4 floors that start after they evacuate. Barry Jennings comes out and says the fire department told us, because they were being told what to do. The debunkers always say, oh, you're saying the fire department did it. No, they were being ordered. We have the cops that were there that heard the countdown for Building 7. We have the video of Amy Goodman doing her local New York show, and she's told to get out of there, and you see her start running, and then it blows up.
Oh, Alex.
And I've interviewed the cops that were there and saw and heard the countdown. And the cops are like, run for your lives! Ah! They start running, and it's boom, boom, boom. And I mean, you could hear the blast, everything.
Another riot.